So today, what we're going to be talking about is basically running a home studio, and what does that look like? What does that mean? And after hearing back from everybody here, I think that, I've got a lot of useful information for you. You guys are very lucky, because when I started out doing production, there was no Pyramind. Actually, I don't think there was any schools, which I know dates me, but that's okay. I started off as a DJ. I was a full-time DJ here in San Francisco. I played all over the United States. I worked in a vinyl record shop. And so my start was as a DJ. And eventually I got to the point where I felt that my career wasn't going where I wanted it to go. So I started producing. I thought, okay, well, I'll take it to the next level by doing that. So I started producing. I can't remember what year, but it was a while ago. And that led to where I am now, which is what we're going to be talking about. So, yeah, let's get into it. Yeah. Okay. So, from my home studio, I run a company called Dark Star Audio, and we do mixing, mastering, production, and artist development. I would say that that is my bread and butter. That is what I do for a living. That's my job, right? I also run a label called Fierce Animal Recordings. I wouldn't say it's a labor of love, because it does make money, and it does what I need it to do. But it is kind of a tumor sometimes, because running, and we'll get into it. We'll get into the pros and cons of running a label. It's beneficial in a lot of ways, but it takes a lot more work than I get back from it, but it pays off in different ways. And then one of the things that Greg and I had discussed was talking a little bit about passive income and what that means. And so, what I want to do for you guys is kind of lay out, some career opportunities. You're here, and some of you, I don't know any of you, but I can tell you this, unfortunately, some of you are going to take this a lot more seriously than others. And some of you are going to, kind of, go around the room with your eyes because you're still trying to figure out what you want to do, and that's okay. But I can tell you right now, from someone who does this day in and day out, like lives and does music for a living, and has numerous, like my circle of friends that do music for a living, and some of my friends are Grammy Award-winning artists. The road ahead of you is tough, so I hope that you can take some of this information and utilize it. Yeah? Yeah, okay. So anyway, let's jump into it. Does anybody have any questions so far? Are we going to save questions for the end? Jump in anytime if you have a question. Let's make it a conversation. Yeah? Okay, so Dark Star Audio, mixing, mastering, and producing. So I think you said you'd like to do something to help others make music. Okay, so that's kind of how Dark Star came about. When I started producing, when I left my career as a DJ, and I say left it because I don't really DJ that often anymore. From time to time I do. But when I left my career as a DJ, I did have to get a full-time job, and you might have to do that. Like your dreams and aspirations don't always come as quick as you'd like them to, and sometimes you have to take a break. When I say I've had a 20-year career, some of that has been a full-time. I've had to have a full-time job, but I've always worked really hard to get back into doing music. Sometimes it's like you're running a marathon, and it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're running a marathon, and sometimes you have to take a break. You've got to refuel, and there's nothing wrong with that. So when I came back to music, let's see, I started Fierce Animals in 2009. So yeah, this is our 10-year anniversary. So I started in 2009, and what had happened was I started putting stuff out on our label, and we started like getting recognition locally. And people were reaching out, and they're like, hey, your stuff sounds good. Who's doing your mastering? And I said, well, I am. I taught myself how to master. I took a couple classes, and that led to people asking me to master their stuff for their label. I think, I don't know if you guys know Bardia from Blue Orb Records. He was my first customer. He was my first client. So I started working with him. Then Bardia told people, and those people told people. And it went from there. And then I thought, wow, this is great. Like I'm running my label. I'm doing what I want. I'm going in the direction that I want to go, but I'm also starting to make money, which is great, doing something else. So already, you have the thing that you want to be doing most, but you're also backing it up, and it kept me in the studio so I can mix, or I can master, and then when I'm done mastering, I don't have to get up and go to a job. I can flip right over to the other thing that I wanted to do.
As a matter of fact, the last time you spoke here at Pyramind was a production workshop that we did with you, right?
Yeah, so
that was when you shared your mastering chain.
I did.
And that was actually a very popular YouTube post.
It still is.
And it still is.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was great. Yeah. Ableton threw their weight behind that. Yeah, that was awesome. I don't know if they sponsored the event, but they had, I think it was Jeff had set that up. And they said, you've got a guy there locally mastering in Ableton. And he said, yeah, that's Bruce. And they said, you should do something with him. So that was cool.
Yeah, what year was that?
I don't know. It was like 2-3 years ago.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
Can I get some water?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay.
I meant to get you one.
So, yeah, and that took off, is my point. Like, that took off. And then once I started doing that, I started realizing that I could actually do mixing as well. So I started doing mixing for people. And then people started coming to me and asking me if I would help them with their tracks. They were like, something's missing. And then that's when the biggest light bulb went off for me. I was like, oh wow, like I could really turn this into a whole production. I could do the mixing, mastering, and producing, which is great. Awesome, thank you so much. All right, the walk here and then the coffee. I got a little dehydrated. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so why am I telling you this? As you grow as an artist and you go through the school, I'm trying to stretch that part of your mind that says it doesn't always have to look like exactly what you thought it would be. Who's the guy that said it was boombox? What was it? You said you wanted to make music just like them, right? That was you, right? Okay. So I would say I like that Greg was having a dialect with you, and you've got to, I'm not saying that you have a narrow focus, but right now, just your response, it's very narrow focus, which some of you are. And if you go into your music career with a narrow focus like this, you're excluding all the things that you might not be thinking about because you're so dead set on what your music career looks like, right? Like it's like the ego. The ego wants to tell us, like, I'm going to be this guy, and I'm going to be up here on stage, and I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to drive this car, and I'm going to have all these girls around me, and it's going to be great. I'm going to make all this money. It's going to be fantastic. And it's great, and someday you might. But if you don't leave yourself open for what else could arise, then you might not find the support that you need and stay relevant in the music scene. So that's kind of why I'm talking to you guys about this, because when I got into doing music, I never thought, oh, I'm going to do mixing, mastering, and producing, and now that's my full-time job. But I'm happy with it. I'm stoked. I mean, it is a dream come true in a way because I get to work on other people's music, which helps my ear. So people are coming to me with other stuff, and then I can incorporate that in my other things that I like, my my passion, like what with my writing. So pros and cons of running a home studio. Okay. So yes, I work out of my home. I've got a really nice big loft. I bought it specifically so that I could work out of. The pros are that I'm home, right? I don't have to go anywhere. I save on gas. I can
save on time.
Time. Yeah, it's all time. I mean, the biggest pro is time. It absolutely is, because time is money, right? I don't have to drive anywhere. It's right there. Also, if I've worked an 8-hour day and I'm done for the day and I go have dinner or I go out, if I come home and inspiration hits me, or I'm running, or if I've got work to do, it's right there. I can hop in the studio and work. So lots of pros. I save on studio cost. The music industry is it's volatile, and I hate to use that word, but it's volatile. 1 year you could be just doing great, and the next year you're like, where did everybody go? So I admit fully that I've not taken a leap of faith and gone into a studio because I know what that looks like, just because of doing music for 20 years. I know that the fluctuations are great, you have to write it out. Like I said, it's a marathon. So having a home studio secures that. But I also, I like working from home. I don't want to leave the house. I'm kind of a hermit. So those are the pros I can think of. Can you guys think of any other pros? If you had a home studio, if you were actually like living out of your home studio or like working out of your home studio, can you guys think of any other pros that I didn't think of? I think I pretty much nailed them. Right? Cons, right? So let's talk about the cons because there are some. It's clients, right? Like, so I do a lot of work online, which is great. I get on Skype. But sometimes you've got to let people into your home/office. And that's the biggest con right there, because I have had people come in my home, which is also where my studio resides, and I've felt uncomfortable. I've been like, I don't know if I really, want to do this. So you've got to be careful.
It's also where your family lives.
It's also where your family lives. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
My family lives there.
Uh-huh.
I'm married. So be careful. If you do go down that road and you do decide to collab with people and whatever, think about that. Think about people that you're letting into your home and your home environment and their energy. Also, the distractions. Sometimes I'm working, it's like I'm doing something, and all of a sudden I'll have this moment, and I'm like looking up, and it's like dead energy. It's just dead energy. Like, right? I'm just like, oh man, I can go take a nap right now. This is great. Like no one would even know. So those distractions are huge. Also, it's easy to goof off. It's easy to, like, oh, I'll go clean the house, or like, oh, I'll go do this. It's easy to make excuses. Sometimes it's hard to sit down and say, this is my job, like this is what I have to do, and if I don't do this, I'm not going to pay rent, I'm not going to get the bills paid. So those are some of the cons from having a home office. Also, if you do have a girlfriend or wife or family, they will be a big distraction, if they're home while you're trying to work, that can also be a distraction. So yeah, there's pros and cons to working from home, and that'll tie in later into the other conversations we have, especially with the passive income as well. So yeah, any questions so far? Yeah. Okay. Good. So does this interest anybody? Because you're interested. Okay. Okay. Good.
One of the things that comes to mind for me, and I know this is a challenge I think for anybody who works from home, is how you handle your time management, right? Because you have a lot of different responsibilities here.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're running your own business, a home studio, you have the responsibility to your client to produce. But one of the things that's always in the back of any home studio operator's mind is, where's my next client coming from?
Yeah.
Right? So you have the marketing responsibility that requires you to constantly be putting the message out there, supporting your brand, doing the business development, at the same time that you're working and producing with your current crop of business.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you were going to get into this at all. I don't want to be overly distracted.
No, this is great.
But I think for me, I know running my own business for many years now, time management becomes a huge concern.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different ways you can spend your time. And in the back of your mind, you're constantly evaluating for yourself, well, what is the best use of my time right now? What am I going to get the most return for with this effort? And often, when you're a solo operation, and now, of course, you're not. You have a partner, a business partner.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you're going to talk about that too,
Yeah.
And how the division of responsibilities come into play. But often, you're faced with that kind of, well, am I going to spend my time working on this client's project right now? Or am I going to spend some time on my marketing efforts and make sure I secure my next 5 clients?
Yeah, that's every day.
Right?
Yeah, that's every day. It really is. Yeah, it was one of the reasons why I partnered up with someone, because I was getting a lot of work, and what would happen was I would get a lot of work, and I would be so inundated with that work, and I would be doing work that I couldn't market. I couldn't do the things that I needed to do. So I'd get done with the work, and then I'm like, I haven't secured anything. So the word of mouth is good, but you still have to, if you're going to sustain, you have to keep your marketing efforts going nonstop. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's not an interruption. Let's make this a dialogue. Let's have some conversation back and forth. That way we can. I think it keeps the energy going instead of just me talking the whole time. Yeah, go ahead.
You touched on it, but I think that's really one of the #1 things is time management. Like, you either got it or you don't, and if you don't, you're not going
Yeah, and along with time management, obviously comes knowing when to bring on help,
Yeah.
you know, and when to push for growth and when not to. And this is all a very delicate kind of balance that has to happen within the dynamic of actually operating the business.
You know, keep in mind, not all of you are going to go down this path. The point of this talk, you can substitute this with anything, and you'll see it. We'll dovetail into when we get to the last topic. But I want to bring this up. I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to bring up my record label as we dovetail into passive income. And the thing that I want to really give you guys is that keeping your mind open. It doesn't mean that you're going to become a mixing and mastering engineer. It doesn't mean that you're going to do A, B, and C. What I want to do is let you know that sometimes when you're trying to get to becoming what you are as a musician, you might have to supplement. Like, okay, I have a friend. He came out to Headroom. His name's Chris. He's a sweet soul. And he's not into electronic music. He plays like guitar. He's into like really drony guitar. And he told me that he had to get a job at Chipotle. And that's not bad. He's doing what he has to do. But he's a little bit older. And I don't know him very well. I just met him. He's a new person. And I would rather see musicians keep their mind open with some of this rather than go get like a fast food job or any kind of job. Like, and especially if you're coming here. And I'm thankful to come work with Greg. And you're going to this school. I want to stretch your mind a little bit so that you're not going, I'm going to produce this amazing song and it's going to be a hit, and I'm going to start gigging, and that could happen, and that would be awesome, right? That'd be awesome. You're like, whoa, this really took off. But if it doesn't, I just want to give you some tools that you have that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep my mind open. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that. So this is more of like an open mind and other things that you can do to pacify the time and supplement your income while you're waiting for whatever it is that you're waiting for. Yeah? Cool. Okay, good.
Especially on the personal brand development side, right?
Absolutely.
Because that personal brand
time.
development takes a lot of time. It doesn't just, you don't snap your fingers and next thing you know you're DJing in Ibiza and your tracks being played all over the world. That brand development takes time. Yeah.
I just had another quick question about, I guess, how are you managing sort of setting aside the physical space for a studio in your home? That's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Well, I've got, when the, guys sound old, when the market was low, I bought a house. I bought my loft, and I was specifically looking for something that would pacify having a studio. So when you come into my home / work, it's like a big live-work loft. It's 2,000 square feet, like 14-foot high ceilings. You walk in, you've got a downstairs area. You go up the stairs, and I used to have a room that was treated, and I got very claustrophobic in there, amongst other things. So I moved out into, there's another office space outside. So I had went into the space knowing I was going to run my home studio out of it. And when I saw this place, one of the other reasons why I was going to do a home studio is because I knew I wanted to have I knew exactly what I wanted. So this was part of my manifestation, right? I knew that when I bought this place, I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And I have done all those things, right?
And I just want to interject here
yeah,
for
please.
a second.
Yeah.
This is a really powerful statement. What he just said, did you hear what he just said? I knew what I wanted. Hugely powerful statement.
Yeah.
Because without knowing what you want,
You're not going to get anything.
you can't get anything, right? You have to know, you have to visualize that in your mind. Bruce visualized it in his mind, and then he actualized it in reality because he asked the universe to provide.
Yeah.
He visualized what he wanted. He backed it up with the right tools and made it happen. And I've seen Bruce's space. I've been in that space, and it's super cool. He's got a great living space down below, couple bedrooms upstairs, and then he's kind of like the captain of his battleship.
Yeah.
Like right on that,
yeah.
right on
It's a
the
spaceship.
second loft, right
Yeah.
on the loft there. It's like an office space overlooking the balcony and the windows, and he's treated it. He's got a nice speaker set up there and his whole computer rig with some nice hardware, etc. And it's a really cool setup.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. That's one of the reasons why I moved. I was in this space and I couldn't see, and it was like dark. And then I was like, you know what? I've developed my ear enough. I can move out into this space. And I did a few treatments, and it works fine. But yeah, I did. I visualized it. I think a lot of times it's not just music. I think people, we come into life and we're wondering. We're wondering what we're going to do. We're wondering, why we're here. We're wondering what our purpose is. These are all normal things to think about. But sometimes you have to push some of that aside and say, okay, well, what do I want? And when you figure out what you want, write it down. Like you like literally write it down. Write down what is the goal? What is the thing that is going to help you find your purpose or find happiness? Write that down and work your way backwards, right? So if I say I want to score a movie, which I still do, right? So I'm on my way. I know it'll happen. I'm not worried about it. But I said I'll start with film and sync and TV and advertising, and I want to get sync royalties. And I was like, I'm gonna have this record label, and then I'm gonna do I'm gonna do techno producing. I'll get my my label in the techno charts, and everything I've set out to do, I've done. The only thing I haven't done is done like a Hollywood movie, which I'm not done yet. I'm not dead, So, that's next, So I'm preparing, now I'm like, okay, what does it look like for that next space, right? Like, what does it look like to move into that next arena, right? I just want to do a cool movie. It doesn't have to be like a Hollywood blockbuster. Like, a horror film would be great, right? I love sound design. Like, so, I want to do, so I'm moving in that direction. I also, landed, I'm DJing in DC in July, so I still, because of my techno name, so that still happens, but I don't push on that, but it still happens. And if that like blossoms and turns into something more, I'll go down that road, but I'm still moving my battleship in the right direction. So just think about that, right? So yeah, all good information. But yeah, if you don't know what you want, you're not going to get it. Like if you just drift, if you're like, oh, like, no offense, I'm just saying if you're like, oh, I'll just write a good song and it'll sound good and whatever, that's not going to quite cut it for the universe. Like you can't manifest like that. You've got to have something big, like if people use the word universe or whatever, but think of yourself as like there's two versions of you. There's you that's here, seated in physical reality. Then there's another you that you can't even fathom. There's like a higher self, right? I'm sure some of you have heard that. You have a higher self. That higher self's looking out for you. So the higher self's not going to let you just write one song and just that's going to do it. You're done. Like, close it up. It's a wrap. You wrote one good song. You got to keep going, right? It's non-stop. There's no cutting through the ribbon and being like, yeah, I've done it. I can kick back now and just ride the chariot off into oblivion. It just doesn't happen. You have to keep going. You've got to have a plan, and that's why I mentioned like the movie, right? I score a movie. It gets played, I get royalties, right? So you've got to keep the money coming in. You've got to keep the bills paid.
Yeah, and that's kind of adds to the requirement of having kind of short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And every good business enterprise in that respect has the ability to visualize the long-term goal and then reverse engineer what it's going to take to get there. And I'll just give you a quick little analogy here. When Matt and I started Pyramind, literally in the first year we moved into this building, we almost went belly up. We almost went bankrupt. And I went to talk to a business advisor about what we'd done and why it wasn't working. And he said that one of the first things out of his mouth to me was, "What's your number?" I was like, "Huh? What do you mean?" He was like, "Well, what's your number?" And I completely didn't understand what he was saying. Does anybody understand what he was saying? What?
How much do you make?
Exactly. How much do you need to make in order to cover your overhead and pay for the lifestyle you want to live? What's your number?
250 a year.
Great. See? He knows his number. You got to know that number. If you don't know that number, you have no ability whatsoever to build an enterprise that's going to create happiness for you in life. And this is just like visualizing your goals.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot think small in this business. This business was not designed for small thinkers.
No.
Right? Small thinkers every day get eaten for breakfast. Okay? So you really do have to have a level of ambition that visualizes your success, but also understands from just a very pragmatic point of view what your number is. And what are you going to do to hit that number? What's it going to take? And you have to be able to reverse engineer that. And ultimately, when Matt and I argued over this number, quite frankly, for almost a month it took us to kind of get to that number. And I can tell you that that first number that we got to, we've exceeded by a multiple of 6 now. Right? But we had to get to that number first, only to realize that that number actually wasn't enough. And I'm not saying enough is never enough. I'm saying you begin to realize very quickly that the goals that you set for yourself are always a next goal in mind, right? You climb that one mountain, and then you go, oh, wow, I did it. Well, I guess I shot too low. So I've got a next goal now, and I'm going to hit that next target, right? And this is just a process of life, right? Until you get to that point where, either you're just so old you just are done, or you have to retire, And I think in music, I don't think we ever really retire. I think it's part of all of our nature in here. It's part of what drives us is to be creators and to create. But what I'm really saying here is that you have to understand and visualize that goal for yourself, and that goal is constantly going to evolve and change in and of itself. There's a reason why we call Pyramind evolving sound. Our goals and targets and the sound and everything we've done have constantly evolved here. Anyway, so just had to interject and kind of give you that insight.
No, it's all good.
From our perspective here.
So yeah, for the sake of time, I'm just going to, so we talked about pros and cons. I'm going to kind of, these were the topics, and I got a little off topic. I love having conversation. I love the back and forth rather than me just talking the whole time. So I'm thankful that you guys are chiming in. Thank you, Greg.
Of course.
Because
you can always count on me.
Yeah, no, you know what? Well, the thing is when you have a dialogue, more information comes into the room, right? If I just sit here and I talk about what I'm doing, it's not really benefiting you. What we need to talk about is what we need to do as artists, and I think that's kind of more the dialogue. And I just want to bring stuff up so we can kind of bring that into the room. So anyway, I'm gonna move along. So finding work, and this could apply again. Doesn't have to be mixing and mastering. This can apply to anything, right? So finding work, right? Networking, that's a big one. I network with Greg. I'm here. You've got to network. Advertising, no brainer. I do Facebook advertisements. I do Instagram advertisements, and I do I go out. No, I don't have a budget like that. Yeah, a couple $100. Yeah, no, a couple $100. It's like under 500. It just I don't have to advertise that much. I'd like to advertise more, but I find that I do all right. I put music job bid sites. I'm on a couple sites where people go on looking for producers. Sound Better is one of them. Have you guys heard of Sound Better? Okay, well now you have. So Sound Better, I know everybody's always like, when I say Sound Better, I always worry about telling people too, because I'm like, oh, it's mine. But you know what? There should be enough work for everybody, or else we're all in trouble. Sound Better is a site where people go to when they're looking for a music producer, when they're looking to be produced, when they're looking for someone to mix and master. It's an amazing site. It costs me $40 a month, and I get way more out of it than that. And I am on that site. Dark Star Audio is the #1 mixing and mastering studio in the Bay Area on that site, which is really awesome. So I'm happy to claim that. So Sound Better is it's a job bid site. We go on there and we get because we're a premium member, like 3 times a day we're flooded with bids, right? Most of them are vocal jobs, which I don't do. And every once in a while, it's awesome because there's actually not a lot of studios out there doing electronic music mixing and mastering, which is awesome because I snatch those up pretty quickly. Sometimes I'll do things that I don't want to do, like hip hop, which is I've actually started recently to start to enjoy it more. It's just a different, I'm used to doing like EDM and techno and anything, house music, breaks or whatever. Hip hop, I find it's kind of a different mentality. So I'll digress, but I'll do anything, as long as it pays the bills.
Would you say the majority of work is out there is in the hip hop spectrum though?
The majority of work is vocalist on this site. The majority of work that I come across is people that are looking for vocalists for like pop, either pop or like someone playing their guitar and singing and that whole thing. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
So people trying to sell songs?
No, people trying to be big. People that are like, there's a lot of like, I have an idea for a song. I'm looking for a vocalist and someone who can do this, and they want to be famous. It's that kind of like, You know, you get a gamut in the music industry. Are you know, you guys like performing rights? You guys do your performing rights? Are you ASCAP members, BMI, anything like that? No? Okay. Let me give you a dose of reality. The music industry, you know, we're here in this bubble. I love Pyramind, right? Because you're here in this bubble, and most of you are electronic artists. Is anybody not an electronic artist in here? What do you do? Well, it's electronic though, isn't it? Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
You're not strumming a guitar.
You're not strumming a guitar. Okay. You guys are like 1% of the music industry. You go down to LA and go to like a music conference, like an ASCAP music conference, and your eyes will be opened. I mean, there are so many people, like America's Got Talent, who want to be famous, right? And I would say that most of the people out there are trying to be famous. Most people are trying to go down that you know, Hollywood dream, you know, like it's me and my guitar, and I'm gonna get up on stage and I'm gonna change the world with my music. You know, it's like that kind of vibe, and you should do it. You should go down to go to a music conference, like see what's out there in terms of like, you know, music. Don't be blindsided by just being in electronic music. Like really know what's out there, because, you know, networking with those people, even though like I'm not in that, just networking with them introduced me to one of my best friends who's a Grammy Award-winning artist. You know, he's got a double platinum record on his wall. But I wouldn't have met him if I hadn't expanded and opened my mind to other types of music, right? You know, so you know, think about that.